On the surface, it looked like a dream. Silk robes, sprawling staircases, champagne on tap, and a mansion full of beautiful women living under one roof with America's most famous bachelor. But behind the infamous iron gates of the Playboy Mansion was a carefully curated illusion, one that blurred the line between luxury and lockdown. Because what most people didn't see were the strict rules, the 9 p.m. curfews, the cameras watching girls in their bedrooms, and the man at the center of it all, Hugh Hefner. This wasn't just about sex, freedom, or rebellion. This was about power, surveillance, and control. So was the Playboy Mansion a glamorized empire? Or was it something far more disturbing? Let's go inside. Part 1. The Illusion of Freedom. From the outside looking in, Hugh Hefner was the ultimate symbol of the sexual revolution. The man who turned a men's magazine into a global lifestyle. The one who empowered women by putting them on the cover. At least, that's how the branding worked. Playboy sold freedom, sexual, social, economic. But for the women living inside the mansion, that freedom came with a contract, unspoken rules, and an exchange rate. Take Kendra Wilkes, one of Hef's most famous girlfriends and a star of The Girls Next Door. In a 2024 interview, she revealed that her relationship with Hefner was completely transactional. She was only 18 when she moved into the mansion. And yes, intimacy with Hef was expected. It was a decision I made, but it came with consequences, she said. Kendra described developing unhealthy thoughts about intimacy, saying her time at the mansion shaped how she viewed her body, her value, and her voice. She wasn't alone. Dozens of former playmates and ex-girlfriends, many of whom were teenagers when they moved in, have spoken out about how the mansion operated more like a tightly managed company than a free-spirited sorority. There were rules. No guests without permission. Curfew at 9 p.m. sharp. All girls were expected to attend club nights with Hef, or else. And what happened in the bedroom? That was never really optional. The image was sexy. The lifestyle was glamorous. But the truth? It was heavily curated, deeply controlling, and, according to some insiders, closer to a cult than a castle. Part 2. Surveillance and control. It wasn't just the curfews or the mandatory club appearances, it was the cameras. And they weren't just in the hallways. According to former girlfriends, including Holly Madison and others interviewed in Secrets of Playboy, Hugh Hefner had surveillance installed in nearly every corner of the mansion, including inside the bedrooms of the women he lived with. They were told the cameras were for safety. But safety for who? Holly, who dated Hef for years and served as his main girlfriend, described the system as constant monitoring. Every move was being watched. Every private conversation had the potential to be recorded. And if you upset Hef, he had the tapes. In fact, Holly says she lived in fear that if she ever tried to speak out or leave, compromising footage could be used against her. Think about that. You're in your early 20s, living rent-free in a famous mansion, but the cost is your privacy, your agency, and your ability to escape without a digital trail. It's a tactic that mirrors abusive power dynamics seen in cults and controlling relationships. Surveillance wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Former mansion staff confirmed that there was a master archive of tapes and that Hefner would sometimes replay old footage for guests or new girlfriends as a way to teach lessons or humiliate. This wasn't about nostalgia. This was about control. And it wasn't just the cameras. The women were reportedly required to sign NDAs, and some described being discouraged from having phones, laptops, or unsupervised visitors. This wasn't the freedom Playboy advertised. It was isolation with a silk robe on. Now it's true. Life at the Playboy Mansion came with perks. The girls were taken on luxury shopping sprees. They had stylists, glam squads, and allowances. Every Friday, according to multiple former girlfriends, Hugh Hefner would hand out $1,000 in cash, but only if you played by the rules. That meant attending parties with Hef, participating in group bedroom activities, and maintaining the image of a happy, loyal girlfriend. In exchange, trips to Vegas, designer heels, VIP events, and weekly shopping trips to LA's most exclusive boutiques. But here's the thing, those perks weren't gifts. They were leverage. If you stepped out of line, if you broke curfew, if you expressed unhappiness, the perks disappeared. Former playmate Carissa Shannon once said, "We thought we had freedom because we had money and makeup, but we were being bought." And Holly Madison echoed the same sentiment. You felt like you owed him. You didn't want to disappoint him. You wanted to be one of the favorites. It's not that the women were tricked, it's that the entire system was transactional. Affection was currency, obedience was rewarded, dissent was punished. So yeah, the shopping trips made for great TV, but they came at a cost far greater than the bill at Louis Vuitton. Part 3. The cult-like atmosphere. It didn't happen all at once. You didn't walk through the gates and think, I've joined a cult. It was slower than that, more seductive. It looked like parties and Polaroids, until it felt like a prison. Multiple women who lived in the mansion have since described the day-to-day environment as emotionally draining, psychologically manipulative, and eerily cult-like. Let's break that down. At the top, main girlfriend, usually blonde, usually compliant. That role came with more money, better clothes, and more screen time. Below her, the second-tier girlfriends, still on the payroll, but less influence, less power. And then, the hopefuls, the girls auditioning, whether they knew it or not, for a permanent place in the lineup. Hefner controlled not just their access to opportunity, but to status. Being promoted or demoted in this hierarchy depended on one thing: pleasing him. And when you place women in a closed environment, give them limited resources, and make affection competitive, you get manufactured loyalty. There were no mentors, no therapists, just Hef, and the women trying to survive his system. Holly Madison described the environment as emotionally exhausting, saying, "It was like being gaslit every day, and you didn't even know it was happening. You thought this was how relationships worked." There were mandatory outings to clubs like the now infamous Wednesday and Friday night parties at LA hotspots. Each girlfriend was expected to sit next to Hef, stay by his side, and return home at the same time. If you didn't, you'd be iced out. No shopping trip, no allowance, no bedroom visit. The structure resembled that of a high-control group, an all-powerful leader. Ritualized behavior, emotional dependency, fear of punishment or exclusion. Even the fashion was uniform: platinum blonde hair, spray tans, matching lingerie. It was as if individuality was stripped away, one manicure at a time. And what made it work so well? The idea that if you were unhappy, the problem was you. Because on the outside, it looked perfect. The mansion, the money, the fame, how could anyone complain? But as more former girlfriends have bravely revealed, freedom was the illusion, and loyalty was survival. Part 4. Marilyn Monroe, the unwilling muse. Hugh Hefner built an empire around the female image, but there was one woman he never let go of, even in death: Marilyn Monroe. She was Playboy's first cover girl, the face that launched the brand. And according to Hefner, she embodied everything the magazine stood for: beauty, power, vulnerability. But here's the truth: Marilyn never gave her permission to appear in Playboy. The famous nude photo used for the first issue? It was a stock image Hefner bought for $500. She wasn't paid. She wasn't asked. She found out about it after it was published. In interviews, Hefner called her the icon of our time. But what do you call it when someone profits off your body without your consent? Because decades later, when Hefner was in his 70s, he bought the crypt next to hers at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. He paid $75,000 for it. "Spending eternity next to Marilyn is too sweet to pass up," he said. Let that sink in. They never met. She never worked with him willingly. And yet, in the end, he decided he had the right to spend forever beside her. It's not a love story, it's a symbol of posthumous possession. To many, Hefner was a revolutionary, fighting for free love and expression. But the more we learn, the more it looks like his empire was built on coercion, surveillance, manipulation, and in Marilyn's case, exploitation. She was the muse of the movement, but never its author. And like so many women who passed through the mansion, she never got to reclaim her story. Let's bring it home with Part 5, The Final Verdict, a Ms. Mojo-style wrap-up that questions legacy, rewrites the narrative, and invites viewers to reflect. Part 5, The Final Verdict, Liberation or Control. For decades, Hugh Hefner was branded as the ultimate liberator, the silk-robed revolutionary who gave women the spotlight. The man who pushed boundaries, broke taboos, and handed the world a glossy version of freedom, centerfold included. But here's the thing about image: it can be curated, controlled, even weaponized. Because when you peel back the Playboy aesthetic, the pool parties, the magazine covers, the marble staircase, What do you actually see? A house full of women on lockdown, with cameras in their bedrooms, competing for the attention of a man 5 decades older, with curfews, contracts, and conditional love. You see freedom for him, and structure for everyone else. It's the kind of glamour that doesn't hold up under a microscope, and the kind of empowerment that only flows in one direction. The women who lived it have called it lonely, regulated, transactional, and yet for years that story was silenced, overshadowed by bunny ears, champagne, and myth. But here's what's changing. They're speaking up now. Kendra Wilkinson calling her relationship with Hefner completely transactional. Holly Madison comparing the mansion to a psychological prison. Bridget Marquardt admitting she couldn't have guests and felt emotionally isolated. Even Crystal Hefner, his widow, describing her post-Playboy life as finally feeling free. The empire may have sold sexual liberation, but in reality, it was often about submission, obedience, and image control. So was Hugh Hefner a cultural icon? Yes. But was he also a gatekeeper, a manipulator, a man who sold the idea of sexual freedom while enforcing his own control behind closed doors? That's for history to decide. But one thing's for sure, the truth isn't always centerfold material. Sometimes it's hidden in the fine print. If you want more deep dives into old Hollywood power and media myth-making, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Was the Playboy Mansion glam or a gilded cage?